Hello and welcome back. We are here today to dive into some murky waters. I'm going to be speaking about conspiracy theories. The world is on fire with them these days, as I'm sure you've noticed. I mean, it's not like they weren't around prior to the pandemic, but after COVID-19, the world's just caught fire with speculations about various kinds of nefarious plots, and they're gaining momentum. And so there is a war right now of the people that believe in it, the people that don't believe in it. I'm not a person who's here to say what is true or not, because honestly, I don't know. And I'm actually very wary of anyone these days that says with absolute certainty that they know what's going on in the world, because I don't think anyone does. It's a very confusing landscape right now. So I'm going to be speaking about the only thing that I'm actually qualified to speak about, which is archetypal theory, men's work, men's initiation, and how this all fits into this conspiracy theory theme, all fits into what I've learned over this last decade of working with men and with archetypes. So the theme that keeps repeating itself is that individuals these days, and of course men are the ones that I work with, but I see it equally as much in women, are totally disempowered. Totally disempowered. We are not telling the truth, we're not facing our fears, we are not revealing what's real, we are following the convenient narratives, the one that gives us a feeling of being in an in-group, of belonging to something. And then whatever we stand for is normally a hand-me-down sort of a gospel from an expert, someone that we just happen to believe, even though we haven't really necessarily researched them. So men come into reclaiming a throne having all of these belief systems. Many men come in believing that on some level there is some kind of dark, conspiratorial, masculine agenda. And again, I don't know. Maybe that's the truth. What I find though in my work, and this is both with men and women, because I have been doing the archetypal work with women as well, is that the people that are most clear that there is some all-powerful, dark, conspiratorial organization that has us all under their iron fist, their manipulative, regressive, sort of authoritarian wet dream. These are people that haven't integrated their warrior archetype. What does that mean? It means that they don't have a really strong sense of clear boundaries. They can't access anger and power without getting explosive or implosive. So I love to use the metaphor of the inner kingdom and the inner throne. And when we don't have sovereignty, when we don't have the power, the sense of belonging, the sense of harmony and wholeness in our own lives, we will have a sense that there is some dark overlord. It can be a group, it can be a man. And the signifying telltale sign that we're in a relationship with an archetypal force is that there's a feeling of it being so fucking epic. Like, it's not that just that a president is a little bit deluded or an organization is a little bit too fond of money or so on and so forth. It's part of almost a godlike power grid that is dominating us all and absolutely. What is that? I call this the shadow sovereign, that there is some dark king that is embodying or sitting on our inner throne. A dark king is sitting on our inner throne, and that means that we're not sitting here. So I could be like down here, and somewhere up here is this dark king. Of course, this is how it typically was for those of us who had abusive parents. If we had an abusive father, that's exactly what was going on. There was this all-powerful entity that could do whatever he wanted with us. And we didn't have any say in the matter. So we learned, we were trained to not be powerful, we were trained to be subjugated by someone almost godlike. And then we move away from our childhood home, but we carry the wound inside. We carry the wounds of a dad that was authoritarian, abusive, didn't love us in the way that we wanted to be loved. I think if there truly was an agent in this world that wanted us to stay disempowered, their favorite way of ensuring that we stay disempowered would be to have us tell conspiracy theories. Because as long as we're engaged with conspiracy theories, we're not engaged with becoming powerful in our lives. We're not engaged with creating the new world, the better world, the more beautiful world that we all know is possible, as Mr. Charles Eisenstein says. We're not engaged in that. We're not engaged in what Buckminster Fuller said, to create the new world and live into it, to completely mangle and paraphrase his quote. You don't fight the old, you create the new. But every conspiracy theorist in the world fights the old, and thus feeds the old, just like a radical feminist that has been completely convinced about the all-pervasive power of the patriarchy. That fights that fight because she's not willing to deal with her father trauma. And that keeps fighting that fight. And even when she's won, she can't leave the fight because it's now at the level of identity. And so the patriarchy lives on in her. And she comes to use exactly the same tools and agendas as the patriarchy did. This is exactly what happens when someone makes a coup. That they make a coup and the old president falls and the new president rises. The new king rises. And everyone stands around him expectantly waiting for the new kingdom to be unfolded in all its glory. But then it turns out the new king is even worse. Because we're all in relationship to this shadow sovereign. Even kings and presidents themselves are in relationship with this shadow sovereign until they do their own personal psychological work, at which point we get to reclaim our inner throne. The shadow sovereign is let loose on the world. And that shadow sovereign isn't an actual person. It isn't an actual organization. It is the archetypal construct that we all feed with our narratives. We create energies in the collective unconscious that then come back to haunt us and overpower us. So even if it were that there was some dark force dominating us, that's not typically what we're in relationship with. We are rather in relationship with the flavor of our own disempowerment, our refusal to take our power back, to take our throne back. It's a challenging message. And I've seen it again and again and again. The very people that complain about misuse of power, when they themselves get power, they are the worst abusers of power. The very people that go around shaming people for perverted sexuality are the very same people that are raping and being pedophiles. So as we give life force, as we give psychological energy to these narratives of dark forces in the world, it behooves us, it would serve us well to check in with ourselves. How much are we doing this to perpetuate our identity of being a victim, and typically of our dad? How much is it that we don't trust the archetypal father? How much is it that we need this to be true, otherwise we don't know who we are. We need there to be dark, demonic, destructive, patriarchal, toxic, masculine megacorps that are dominating us in cruel ways, because otherwise I'm not justified in giving my power away so easily. Again, I'm not making truth claims about what is true and what is false. I'm just saying that if we're going to go out there and we're going to contribute to a better world, if we actually bring the baggage of our own unhealed father wounds and all of this archetypal energy, we will simply feed the very forces that we are trying to combat. The very same archetypal forces, the Shadow King. So this is a voice and a message that I haven't seen much. So I wanted to bring it. I wanted to share it with you. And I hope it has had some value to you. Share it with others if this makes so much sense to you that you want other people to have an opportunity to take on this more Jungian archetypal approach. The less popular approach, because it brings the onus of responsibility back on us. It makes me the author of my own life experience. It makes me the source of the emergence of the world. I am the one from whence the world arises. The world as I know it, the world as I experience it. So may you take your power back. May you take your inner throne back. And once you do that, then go out there and fight all of the evils of the world. Before that, be careful that you're just not perpetuating your traumas and your own victimhood narratives. That was my message to you today. You can totally bring yourself responsibly after you do this work, and I trust that you will, and that you will kick ass and deliver your gifts into the world. This has been Eivind. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.